Hello there and welcome to my channel where I share all the preservation tips and tricks that I have learned as I have grown my business. My name is Courtney and I'm a flower preservationist and business educator, and I am so excited that you're here. Probably one of the most frequently asked questions that I get when I'm speaking to clients is, how did you get into flower preservation? And I also hear this from other preservationists who see my success and wonder how they can achieve the same for themselves. It's actually a really crazy story how it all happened, and today I'm going to share it with you. My story begins in 2020, which apparently is not an uncommon beginning for most of the preservationists I know, and I'm sure you can imagine why. But let's step back before 2020, give a little context. Before flower preservation came into my life, I was a wedding photographer. I've actually been in the wedding industry for over 10 years as a wedding photographer, and it was every bit my dream job. I had been photographing full time for about 5 years, and I had just had the best year of my photography career in 2019. I went into 2020 feeling on top of the world and ready to take on that world. Fast forward to March 2020, and being a non-essential worker meant no more weddings and meant no more income. At first, everything was fine as I had personally kept a good bit of money in savings for any emergencies in my business. And I knew this couldn't last very long, so I took the opportunity to work on my business, make some improvements to certain parts of my client experience, and get ready for when things open back up. So now time-wise, we're looking at about summer of 2020, and I was sitting on the couch searching Pinterest for marketing ideas for my photography business. And I came across an ad for something that I had never seen before. At first glance, it reminded me of this beautiful music box that my grandmother had when I was young. It was a clear rectangle box that had flowers in it that it glowed and played music. But this one that I saw in the picture was different. The caption read, "Preserve your flowers forever." Now, like I said, I had never heard of flower preservation ever. All I know about saving flowers at the time, all I knew was to hang them upside down in your closet for 2 months and let them air dry, which is what I actually did to my wedding bouquet when we got married 10 years ago. But I had never seen this before. And I remember thinking to myself, this can't be real flowers. You can't save real flowers like that. So I got curious and clicked on the ad and was directed to a website where I was introduced to the entire process of preserving flowers in resin. Needless to say, I was amazed, but I was getting sidetracked, and so I went back to searching marketing ideas for my photography business. Well, as the days went by, I found myself constantly being reminded by Pinterest that flower preservation existed. You know, when you click on one ad and it shows you more of the same thing over and over and over again. Well, the more I saw, the more I became intrigued by it. And then, of course, social media jumped in and started showing me all of the preservation artists. And that opened up a whole new world of behind the scenes and watching them actually make these resin pieces. The more I watched, the more I realized I was starting to feel something that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had this fire just lit in my soul that was growing, and it created this crazy amount of joy of the possibility of what flower preservation could do for me. I didn't know it at the time, but it's obvious now that this was a calling for me to take on a new chapter in my life and to walk a different path that I hadn't planned. Now, let's be honest. Remember, we're in the middle of a world crisis at the time, and I'm over here thinking about starting a brand new business. That requires a large amount of capital to get started. Yeah, I was a little crazy, but somehow I just knew this was what I was being called to do. So I spent about a month or so doing research and creating a business plan to present to my husband, Steven. Luckily for me, I have the most supportive husband in the world, and he was all in. Now, I think this was maybe about November, when I did this. And so then I spent the next 4 months researching supplies, looking for tutorials, which there weren't really any at the time. Like, seriously, it was so hard to find one place where I could just learn everything I needed to know to preserve flowers. That's about to change. But anyway, I spent 4 months buying different supplies, experimenting with all the things, finding mold makers, lots of trial and error, making small pieces. Any spare moment I had was dedicated to working with resin. I knew that if I was going to make this into a business that I had to know what I was doing, and I also had to know that I was actually going to enjoy it. So now we're about in February 2021. Texas is experiencing its worst winter in the last, 30-something years that I've been alive. We've affectionately dubbed it the Texas Snowmageddon. And at this time, I had decided that I was going to make my first large piece. I didn't know a storm was coming, but here we are. Until then, I had only made very small pieces, like little blocks and things and pendants or whatever. But here we are. I've decided to make a big piece. It's literally 5 degrees outside, and if you know anything about resin, it hates the cold. So we have the heater in our house working double time to keep my room at a balmy 77 degrees so that the resin can cure properly. But we were constantly having rolling blackouts for energy conservation, and it was happening all around us, and I was terrified it was going to happen to us and ruin my piece. But thankfully, we never had a blackout, and I was able to create my piece almost perfectly. Not perfect, but it was my first one, so it was good. It was the longest 10 days ever, but I did it, and I was so proud of myself. Here I am holding it the day I demolded it, and here it is now. That day I was so stinking excited, and that day I bought my domain for my website, and I put all of the legal steps of starting my business into place. And 3 months later, on May 10th of 2021, I officially launched Flora Creek Place. And the rest is history, which is another story for another day. I hope you enjoyed hearing my story, and I hope that it inspires you to listen to that little flame in your heart that's calling for your joy. You never know where it might lead you. And thank you so much for being here and for listening and for your love and support of my business and my channel. And if you loved this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to be notified of the next one. I share new videos every week on flower preservation tips and tricks, stories about business, and I'd love to have you join again. Until next time, my friend, have an amazing week.